Hi everybody, welcome back to Moscone South. We're here at Dreamforce 2025, Salesforce Big Customer Conference. My name is Dave Vellante, I'm here with my co-host, George Gilbert. Stephanie Sadowski is also here. She's the Global Salesforce Business Group lead at Accenture. Stephanie, you got some street cred in this enterprise transformation conversation. You work with customers. You're obviously adopting Agentforce internally. Your CEO, Julie Sweet, was here at a keynote, talking to Marc Benioff, super energy. You got to have energy when you're at Salesforce. You know, it's like really exciting to be here. My first Salesforce, Dreamforce. So yeah, congratulations on all the headlines that you guys got in the keynote, and welcome to theCUBE.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your role, and because you can talk both internal use and you work with customers, right?
Correct, yes. So we believe very much that how do you possibly guide clients through this if we're not doing this ourselves? And so Accenture uses Salesforce for our sales effectiveness tool to manage all of our pipeline and all of our opportunities. And that's how we like to be customer zero, so we can take all that experience out to the clients because we've learned what to do and what not to do through the process.
So how hard is this stuff? Everybody wants to know, because the demos make it look so easy, but yeah, you really got to give it some thought. You have to have your data in order, and you've got to get the whole company. I mean, this is where Julie is so important from a top-down perspective. We heard from Michael Dell, he lined up his whole company, said, we're going to be toast if we don't disrupt ourselves. Did you guys have that sort of same mindset?
Yeah, correct, and I'm a very big fan of you've got to self-disrupt, because if you don't, you will be disrupted. And I'd rather be the one out disrupting everybody else. And so if we go back to internal to Accenture, and we've already been on this sales reinvention journey for a while, and now Agentforce got released a year ago, and we were one of the first users of Agentforce in our platform to figure out what we liked and what we didn't like, and there's a lot of things we learned very, very quickly. First off, the change management of this is massive. Because, and I'll talk about it from a couple different dimensions. One is, if you think about the people that have to build this, you also have to work in a different way. And so the first round of Agentforce use cases we put out were designed by the central team who had been managing the process for a long time. You find the ones that work, the ones that don't work. But then you start to get feedback from the users that are using this, and you start to realize, oh, there's a use case we should go build that nobody even thought of that actually will drive simplicity in people's lives. And I think that at the end of it, where you can make it easier for people to do their job and take admin away, then users, you flip from a push of having to push people to use AI to a pull where they're like, I want more access to this, and that's the dynamic you want to create.
So if I kind of follow up on that, so are you saying that initially, so you had a centralized organization that was, you didn't say this, but kind of paving the cow path though, say, hey, let's automate the existing processes, and then you realize, there's a better way to do this.
Yes.
And that was where the true disruption comes from, isn't it?
It is, because I think while in historic projects you always want users to be involved and framing things, I go back to this quote from Henry Ford. If you asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. They can't envision the car. And so if we were to have gone out and asked people what they wanted right away, everyone would have just given better versions of what we have, and you actually needed people who could think about what does the car look like, and how do you go build that? And then once you build the first one, then others are like, oh, now I get it, now let me go build that, how do we replicate it? And then you kind of continue to get more people out there following it. And I see the same thing with our clients. And then the last point I would make on it is, who you think could design the car may not be who you think it is. And so I think we as leaders also need to do a very good job of looking at our talent and see who your new leaders are that are emerging, that really get this and are empowered by it, and then when you find them, empower them to just continue to go, and others will follow there. But it's not who you might think.
I want to follow up on something you said that was interesting, that for some roles, Salesforce was more, I have to enter information in so that others can track my activity, or aggregate and analyze what's going on in the organization. But how might you combine, or is it possible now to combine agent enabling the existing applications so that it takes burden off someone who had to, where they had to do data capture, but now they get more back. But then at the same time, you can reimagine the processes so the whole sort of outcome is more effective. Because we've been all about these siloed efficiencies for 50 years. Can you tie those two things together?
Yeah, and I'll give a really great example that also ties into now voice AI as another channel. And if you haven't played around with that, I think it's a real game changer. Because exactly as you described, for many years, a lot of people, especially on the sales side, you got to go home and let's be honest, it's from 8 to 9 o'clock at night. Let me tell you what I did all day today. And we look at a number of our different clients we're starting to work with on this, and they have a lot of downtime in between client meetings. And so when you're driving from one place to the other, being able to call in and say, hey, I just went to this customer, met with this person, we talked about these 3 topics, and could you send our latest thought leadership on whatever the topic was, and have Agentforce, have the voice AI take all that, parse it all out, put it in so you're compliant with what you need to go do, and everybody gets the data they want, but also then creates the action, and then on the sales side, we just added value to their life, because now they don't have to do this from 8 to 9 at night, they're doing it in otherwise downtime.
So, we're talking about a company that is labor intensive, and we're also talking about this amazing technology that allows you to scale without labor.
Yes.
And so, I wonder if you could address that, and how specifically Accenture's thinking about that. Are you kind of softwareizing your business, agentifying your business, and what's the vision for Accenture of the future?
Yeah, so if we go back to it, because this is the question, right? Is professional services not going to be around? And I actually think it's quite the opposite.
Oh, it'll be around.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And I think there's 2 flavors. One, let me answer on Salesforce, and then let me talk a little bit broader ecosystem. So if I just think about Salesforce and like people, so let's go back to this example of the salespeople, and maybe today half of their day is spent doing admin, half of their day is calling on customers. What I expect and what we're seeing is when you automate or use AI to do the admin components, this frees up time where actually they can go call on other customers. So you can actually increase people's books of business and grow top line growth, right? Have revenue growth out of it. And then the implication of that is that you then also have to assess your workforce, because maybe you were hiring people that were half good at admin and half good at sales, but maybe now you need people that are like 80% good at sales and they only need to be 20% good at admin, right? So it changes your hiring profile, and then you have to look at the people that you have and say, okay, now based on how the world has evolved, how do you adjust what roles people in? Because some people will see that and be like, oh, this is great, you just got rid of the stuff I hate. But you also will have some people that are like, I actually kind of liked the admin stuff better. And then the question becomes, what's the next role? So while I think certain components or tasks that people are doing will go away and be automated, the roles themselves will change and get reshuffled, and then we just have to guide the talent through how they shuffle into what the new roles are. So I think the talent and organization piece of this is huge. And this is what we're doing within Accenture as well. And then on the ecosystem side, what I would say is, what I believe is one of our 2 superpowers is our industry knowledge, but ecosystem is the other. And we work with a lot of these different ecosystem partners, and we know it's going to be Salesforce right? Because there's going to be, whether it's Google, or it's Amazon, or it's OpenAI, or Anthropic, it doesn't matter which one, there's going to be someone else there. And this really plays to our strength, because I have a peer that runs all of those, and we collaborate together.
So thinking about the future of professional services, and I agree, there's a lot of work that needs to be done now, and that's not just going to disappear, it's going to change.
Yep.
But I'm interested in how you're transferring the internal knowledge to external, and one of the key areas where services is needed is getting your data house in order.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could share experiences there and what you guys have done internally and what you're bringing to customers in that regard.
Yeah, this has been a big question a lot of people have been asking, because a lot of clients or customers don't have their data in order, so they're like, is there anything I can do? And as with all things, it's like you got to look at what you can do and what you can't do, and where you can, how do you go fast? And so there's certain components, like customer service, for example, is an area where I always like to ask the hard question of how much data do you actually need to bring? Because everyone will want to bring everything, and it's actually not all needed. And in some cases, things are moving so fast, even pulling data from a year ago, it's not even relevant anymore. So ask the hard question of what do you need, and then how do you make sure what you're building is kind of structured for the future, and then I only like to bring forward what you have to. And then the other thing I would say is, people are also asking the question on Agentforce of like, well, should we just go build custom, or should we buy and in most cases, I mean, Salesforce is in so many customers out there, their data's already there, they've spent time and investment to build their process, all their guardrails, their guidelines, their security, all this stuff is sitting there. Why would you not layer AI on top of it to take advantage of all the investments you've made over the years, which also helps you get around some of this data question as well. But there are things that will have to be cleaned up. It's just how do you parallel track things so you can start to move at pace in the areas that are more ready, and then clean up in parallel to be ready for those after.
So you've touched on something that we've seen a lot, and when we talk to Salesforce salespeople and some of their customers, and then customers more broadly, there's this sort of this top-down imperative. It's like almost fear of missing out. We got to do something with agents. But then, the best practice always is start with an outcome you want to achieve, then collect the data you need to support that outcome.
Right.
Make sure that you have the actions so that the agent can operationalize decisions. But when you think in those terms, it's obvious what tooling you need and what platforms, because as you said, the Salesforce data is in place, the actions are there, they're governed, the data's governed.
Yep.
What are you seeing in terms of like classes of maturity with customers that you're looking at, in terms of how they're approaching the problem? Is it a lot of this fear of missing out, I got to do something with agents, or is this more practical, let's accomplish this one outcome and then build another one after that?
Yeah, so I see a mixed bag out there, and I think the FOMO point is real. And so then there's a little bit of the gunshot, right? Like just, hey, everybody go do everything. And so then you have lots of little pilots, but an unclear direction of like where you're really going. I do like the notion of the 2x2 of like, what has value, but also what is your data, what shape is your data in, to kind of drive what's the first batch of things that you can do. And for me, some of the first use cases where you see success is actually if you can get the end users that need to consume this, if you can really focus on what's going to drive value for them, even though it may be smaller in the grand scheme of things, it will make the change management component of this so much easier. Because again, you flip from a push to a pull where they're like, I want it.
So on that change management bit, that's the other thing we've heard, that sometimes the technology side of the house is tasked with, get some pilots, show some wins, but it's the business side that has to buy in and say, here's the outcome we want to achieve, and then they need to be the ones that take responsibility for changing how work gets done.
Yes.
And how do you help customers like bridge that?
Bridge too. Yeah, so I like the phrase like think big, start small, scale fast. And so the think big gets to your point of like, what is that roadmap of things? The start small is like, what are those first use cases you can do to get some points on the board, shall we say? And then once you're doing that and you've won the hearts and minds, like how do you scale very, very quickly? And I think the other thing I will say is, as clients think about what their roadmap is and as they're doing these use cases and looking at it, also have the humility to fail fast. Because there are some use cases you're going to do that they're going to look wonderful on paper, but then you do it and you're like, so we're going to stop. And we're going to go put our energy somewhere else. The other thing I'll throw out kind of related to what you were saying is, once you actually have the prompts out there, it's fascinating to watch what people will ask the agent to go do, which also tells you where do people want and need help, to then go put that into your input funnel of ideas, of use cases, because again, now from your users, you'll get something of like, I never thought of using it for that. That's a really good thing, let's go do that.
Okay, so I've been just taking notes here.
Yeah.
Like critical success factors to bring out the MBA book. So you got to have top-down support.
Yep.
You got to have your data house in order. You got to have business user adoption. I like the think big, start small, scale fast. I would, it sounds like you add kill the fails fast, right? Fail fast, and then double down on the ones that work.
Yep.
Anything else we're missing in terms of cultural edicts, not edicts, but cultural things that you can do, other technology, out-of-scope technology requirements,
I mean,
process sort of expertise, what else needs to be there?
I think there's two more things I would hit on. One is, I think historically when you think about Salesforce, you just think front office and you put your blinders on and you think I just have to play within this swim lane, shall we say. And I think with AI, you now need to start to pop your head up and look to the swim lane to the left and the right and start to think bigger and broader. And so even parts of organizations that historically haven't had to collaborate together should be collaborating together. So as you, again, lean in with this agentic point of view, you're not just, how do you optimize the front office? Like, questions like, should a mid-office even exist anymore, are questions that should be asked. And people in the back office should be working together, because a lot of how organizations were crafted were to plug holes of the past that actually may not exist anymore with agentic. So I think making sure you look beyond the swim lane of just the front office into the other spaces, you can have even more optimization. The second thing I would say is, within our clients, I can't emphasize this enough, is really think about, like, going back to the analogy I mentioned earlier on the horses versus the cars, find your car people and really empower them. And that may mean you're skipping a level or two to go find them, and that's okay.
It reminds me of talking about organizational divisions that never talk to each other. It's like OT and IT never used to get together, and now they're bringing those together, and it has huge impacts. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was great to have you. Love to have you back and track the success.
Sounds good.
Okay, this is Dave Vellante for George Gilbert. We're here at Dreamforce 2025 from Moscone South in San Francisco. We'll be right back after this short break.